And joining us now is somebody who's worked in radio, but is working in television as well. Hitekani MaGwedze, you've been watching the Cosatu March, but it's World Radio Day. What radio station did you grow up listening to?
Well, good evening, Peter. Well, I grew up listening to Mganalonene. I grew up with my gran, and she's Tsonga, and we used to listen to everything from the morning. In fact, when I woke up for primary school in the mornings, you'd hear that sound that they play early in the morning. I think it's a chauffeur early in the morning, and they used to wake us up then. So I grew up on Mganalonene.
Well, fantastic. It's good to know that the SABC is reaching all of our citizens in their languages. All right, but you had a busy day out on the streets with Cosatu. Tell us about the turnout and how it went this morning, particularly in Johannesburg.
Certainly, Peter. Well, the march started around 10 this morning. It was attended by quite a lot of people. I think in the hundreds. We had about, if I can estimate, about 15 buses that were parked at Mary Fitzgerald Square, all coming in attendance for that march. They, of course, marched from Mary Fitzgerald Square to the legislature to the Mineral Resources Council of South Africa.
Let's get a bit of clarity about what they were marching for or against, because you hear about job losses, but is this speculated job losses, suspected job losses, actual job losses? What was their main concern?
Certainly. I mean, I asked the same question to SSCP leader Solima Baila on whether this was propelled by Eskom and the unbundling planned by the president or not. And he said this has been a long time coming because of some of the job losses or retrenchments that have been happening, for example, in the mining sector. Of course, this has been influenced by the state of the economy, the weakened state that it's in, and there have been some, threats of job losses. And because of that, they want a moratorium and a banning completely across the sectors, public and private, of any planned or, unplanned retrenchments that may be in the pipeline.
All right, so seemingly it was in reaction to the SONA where this unbundling was announced, but it's not the only area where job losses are feared. Mining is another area.
Exactly. I mean, we have, of course, seen some job losses in the mining sector. In fact, the mining sector had been at the NESA hearings saying that if there are continued load shedding or if there is tariff hike, yeah, exactly. If there is a tariff hike, they'll see a lot more jobs cut. And it's really concerning seeing that there were less people at work today at Eskom, and it just feels like there might be a rollout or an avalanche that would result in job losses. But yes, in the mining sector, they are calling for a saving of those jobs. Some mining giants saying that because of the weakenedness of the economy, they could see some more job losses.
So Johannesburg, the issues around those job losses, were the issues the same across the country that they were marching against, or were there other things coming up in other parts of the country?
Well, the call for government to stay on a balancing act of creating jobs and saving jobs was quite themed out throughout the provinces, but you'd find here and there, for example in Limpopo, there were calls that everyone who is implicated in the scandals, in the corruption under the inquiries, including VBS, should be dealt with. Money should be recouped, because clearly there's a lot of money that has been misspent and irregularly spent, and that money should be recouped and should be channeled towards creating jobs. So some provinces had their own messages, as it were.
So Cosatu and the ANC had found their way back together again. There was those strain in the previous administration. But I wonder, you know, being a member of the Tripartite Alliance, was it a difficult thing for them to march today against issues being led by an ANC-governed government?
Sure. You know, some may say there are cracks, but I don't know if you can characterize them as cracks per se. I mean, we saw just after the SONA that the leader of the SACP came out saying that they don't want this unbundling. And today, the SACP came out in essence marching against its own colleagues. I mean, in fact, in Gauteng, they expected, the legislature, they expected the Premier to come out and take the memorandum, and only Jacob Mabula, the MEC, came out to
We're running out of time, but perhaps very briefly, do you get a sense that as we get closer and closer to the elections, a lot of these bread and butter issues are going to be translated into marches on the street?
It feels like it. And it's a very sensitive time, obviously, when a lot of people come together in the streets and say that this is what they want. Very close to the elections, you get the feeling that maybe the ANC would listen.
All right, Hitekani MaGwedze, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for carrying the story and watching the story for us. Thanks so much for coming in.